Good morning. Welcome to the YouTube channel Finance Investment by Ms. Trinh Nguyễn, CFA Master of Science. Today, I will discuss about things must know about Vietnam stock market. Types of securities is the first content. Securities include two main types: stocks or equity securities and bonds or debt securities. There are still, besides, hybrid securities like convertible bonds, which are bonds you can convert into shares or cash at a specific ratio. For example, you can convert one bond to 10 shares. That's the right. And normally, convertible bonds have lower coupon than straight bonds, that are bonds without conversion option, because with convertible bonds, you have more upside. Stocks are ownership rights on net asset of a company. You deduct from own assets of a company by own liabilities. The remaining is belong to shareholders of the company. There are two kinds of stocks: common stocks and preferred stocks. Preferred stocks have a higher dividend than common stocks, and also they have priority to receive dividend before common stocks. Equity securities, they can be public equity or private equity. Public equity refers to shares of a company already traded on stock exchange. About private equity, you have often heard about that, but precision is three forms of private capital are venture capital, like investment in risky startups, especially technological startups. Another form of private equity is buyout, leverage buyout, or management buyout. In leverage buyout, buyers use borrowings to buy the companies and use assets of the company to generate cash, repaying debt, and also interest. Management buyout is buyout by management. Another form of private equity is PIPE, private investment in public equity. For example, Masan, ticker MSN on Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange, they already invested in Vina Cà Phê Biên Hòa, ticker VCF on Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange. They use this form, private investment in public equity. The second one I want to discuss is stock market and shareholders. Stock market is the place where stock of public company are traded. In Vietnam, currently, there are three stock exchanges: Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange, HOSE or HSX, with 404 listed stocks, market cap $250 billion US, Hanoi Stock Exchange, HNX, with 333 listed stocks, market cap $65 billion USD, and Upcom, a listed public company market. Stocks listed are 861 and market cap 190 billion USD. Upcom is under HNX. You can see that major shareholders are shareholders with over 5% ownership at a joint stock company. Minority shareholders are other shareholders with stake less than 5%. Another is strategic shareholders. They are shareholders selected by annual general meeting in terms of financial capacity, technology level, and they also must have a commitment of collaboration with the company at least 3 years. What is public company? Public company is joint stock corporate successfully sold shares to the public, or they have minimum share capital of 30 billion VND and at least 10% of stock owned by over 100 investors, excluding major shareholders. Professional investors. Recently, you have heard about professional investors related to bond raising by the companies. Professional investors are entitled to many corporate actions by the companies. According to the law of Vietnam, they are investors having financial capacity or professional qualification about stock market. They are commercial banks, foreign banks, finance companies, insurance companies, securities companies, fund management companies, securities funds, international finance institutions, state financial funds outside government budgets, state financial institutions allowed to buy stocks as per related regulations. There are also institutions which have a capital over 100 billion VND, or they are institutions already listed or registered for trading. Professional investors are also persons First, with securities practicing certificates. Me, I have fund management practicing certificates by State Commission Securities of Vietnam. There are also persons with investment portfolio over 2 billion VND, or there are persons with tax of the latest year over 1 billion VND. The following content I want to discuss is corporate actions. They include public securities offering, that is offering via public media, or offering to over 100 investors, excluding professional investors, or the offering with a number of investors is not defined. Different from this form is private placement. That is offering to under 100 investors, excluding professional investors, or the just offering to professional investors. You can see a prospectus already. So it is a document or electronic data with information related to securities offering or listing. You must read it, it's very important. Annual general meeting, AGM, is the yearly gathering of a company's shareholders. According to Vietnam law, AGM must be organized latest after 4 months from the ending date of financial year. Annual report. It is very informative, very important, and interesting. It is a yearly report to shareholders about activities and finances in the previous fiscal year. The timing, according to Vietnam law, is in 20 days from the yearly audited financial statements, or 120 days from the ending date of fiscal year. Now I discuss about securities and fund management company. The law regulations on requirements of minimum charter capital. Securities companies, when they have advisory business, they must have minimum charter capital 10 billion VND. With brokerage services, 25 billion VND. With proprietary trading, 50 billion VND. And when they have underwriting services, charter capital must minimum 165 billion VND. Underwriting, when securities companies committed to buy part or hold shares issues in the offering if they have underwriting services in this deal. Branches of foreign securities company in Vietnam, minimum charter capital is 10 billion VND. And for branches of foreign fund management companies, 25 billion VND. Now I discuss about asset management fund. There are some popular forms of funds. First, public fund. It is fund with fund certificates offered to public. There are two kinds. Normal, you have heard, is open-end fund and closed-end fund. Open-end fund is public fund with fund certificates offered, and these fund certificates are subject to be bought back by funds when investors require. On the contrary, closed-end fund is public fund, but fund certificates offered will not be bought back by funds as per requirements of investors. Another form of fund is member fund. It is securities investment fund with capital contribution members from 2 to 99 and only includes professional investors. Property investment fund is fund with major investment in real estate or in issuing company. This issuing company have 65% of total revenue from real estate business or ownership in the latest year financial statement. Now I discuss about mutual fund and ETF that are very normal funds and popular in the stock market. Mutual fund and exchange traded fund ETF. Mutual fund is the fund raising capital from investors, and they invest in securities with professional investment methods. Mutual fund normally use active investment to beat the market, like VN Index. While ETF, they apply passive investment and they just brings investment return like the market. Therefore, mutual fund have higher management fee on net asset value, NAV, like 1.5 to 2%, while ETF just have management fee of 0.05 to 1%. However, fund size of ETF is normally higher. In my opinion, retail investors, they have limits in capital, knowledge, experiences, information, so they can select ETF with low fees and still have investment profit from stocks as one of the investment channels with high risk return, but with higher risk. High risk, high return is always. Mutual fund, they face difficulties to always beat the stock market in the long term after all expenses. However, mutual fund, they has advantages. First advantages is diversification and risk reduction with investment in a portfolio of thoroughly researched and well-selected stocks. And another advantage is the matching investment targets of institutions or retail investors. For example, young persons or institutions will aim to high growth, light growth fund. That means fund investing in companies with higher valuation like high PE, but they also generate a look of high growth sales in high growth earnings. Value fund, they more suitable for pension fund or older people with liking a regularly cash flow because value fund invest in stocks with regular dividend payment. There are also other kinds of funds like large cap, mid cap, and small cap fund. Again, small cap fund is suitable for a young person because they object upside in times, not just in percentage. Mutual fund, they avoid disadvantages of ETF as there are periods the market is impacted by investment sentiments and cash flow, may be overvalued or undervalued, then it does not reflect the intrinsic or the right value of company or stock. As a result, ETF can buy expensive stocks or sell cheap stocks just to match the market index. So you can see that mutual fund invests with more smart and professional strategies. Stock ownership is the final content in my discussion today. The foreign room at listed companies is 100% except the limitations by international agreements or the list of restricted industries according to law of Vietnam. In 2020 law, there are 227 restricted industries, like the full room for foreigners in banks is 30%. Banks is like sensitive industry, like the way you mentioned in Vietnamese. So the maximum ownership at banks by a person is 5%, by an institution 15%, and group or related shareholders 20%. Now I end my discussion today. Thank you for your attention. Please subscribe and follow the coming videos. Thank you.